You're late, my mom said as she stepped onto the porch, dragging her suitcase behind her. I glanced at the clock on my dashboard. 6:02 a.m. 2 minutes late. 2 minutes, Mom, I said, forcing a smile as I climbed out of the car. I reached for her suitcase, but then I saw her, Madison, emerging from the house with her own suitcase. My smile froze. What's going on? My voice was carefully steady. Mom turned to me, her expression far too cheerful for what she was about to say. Oh, Ava, we decided Madison should come instead of you. Instead of me. My stomach dropped. Excuse me. She's been so stressed lately, and she really needs this trip. The words hit like a slap. Mom, I've been planning this for years. I paid for everything. She waved a hand dismissively, as if I just mentioned a minor inconvenience. And we're so grateful, sweetheart. But you're always working so hard. You can take another trip later. Madison needs this right now. I turned to Madison, waiting, hoping for some sign of guilt. Nothing. Just a smirk, her weight shifting onto one hip like this was just another inconvenience for me to swallow. Thanks for understanding, sis, she said, her voice dripping with fake gratitude. The front door creaked open again. Dad. His gaze avoided mine as he handed me his suitcase like this was just any other morning. The betrayal felt suffocating. This is unbelievable, I said, my voice shaking. This was supposed to be our trip. Something for me to share with you. Mom's smile didn't waver. It still is, sweetheart. Just with Madison instead. Don't make this a big deal, Ava. Your sister really needs a break. The realization that changed everything. My name is Ava. And for the past 2 years I worked overtime, saving every extra penny to give my parents a trip they'd never forget. Flights, luxury hotels, private guided tours, every detail planned, down to the last dinner reservation. But standing there in my parents' driveway, watching my sister take my place, I realized something I'd been avoiding for years. It didn't matter how much effort I put in. In their eyes, Madison would always come first. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the sharp retort threatening to spill from my lips. Instead, I forced a tight smile and opened the trunk. Let's get going then, I said, voice flat. If they wanted to prioritize her over me, fine. But I wasn't about to let them enjoy it. The drive to the airport, the car ride was suffocatingly quiet, except for Madison's incessant chatter. Oh my gosh, Mom. Did you see that TikTok about Paris? I can't wait to go shopping there. Do you think we'll have time? Or will the tours take up the whole day? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, staring straight ahead. My mom chuckled. Of course we'll have time, honey. We'll figure it out when we get there. They didn't even notice I wasn't part of that we anymore. Dad cleared his throat. Thank you for driving us, Ava. I know this probably feels unusual. I met his gaze in the rearview mirror. Unusual? That's an interesting way to put it, Dad. He shifted uncomfortably, his hands tightening on his lap, probably wishing he hadn't spoken at all. From the back seat, Madison leaned forward. You're not mad, right? I didn't answer. I mean, this is really big of you letting me go. She sighed dramatically. I could never have afforded this on my own. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. I forced a tight smile. Of course, Madison. Enjoy the trip. Goodbye and good riddance. By the time we pulled up to the airport drop-off, my patience was hanging by a thread. As I helped unload their luggage, my mom pulled me into a quick hug. Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means a lot to us and to Madison. I nodded stiffly. Sure, Mom. Madison beamed, wheeling her suitcase toward the entrance. Thanks, Ava. You're the best. I stood there, watching them disappear into the terminal, my chest tight with anger. With hurt. Their trip, my rules. The drive home was a blur. The words from that morning looped in my head, each one slicing deeper than the last. This means a lot to Madison. You're not mad, right? You're always working so hard. When I pulled into my driveway, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Then, without a second thought, I climbed out of the car, marched inside and opened my laptop. Time to get to work. Hotel reservations? Cancelled. Tours? Refunded. Airline upgrades? Gone. Each confirmation email that popped into my inbox felt like a weight lifting off my chest. They wanted to take Madison instead of me? Fine. But they wouldn't be staying in five-star hotels or enjoying private guided tours on my dime. When I finally closed my laptop, a slow satisfaction settled over me. Because for once I was the one calling the shots. Let them explain themselves to the front desk staff in Paris. I was done being their doormat. The first call came as soon as their flight landed. Then, another. And another. I ignored my buzzing phone as I unpacked my suitcase, the one I'd packed so carefully for a trip that was no longer mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. I hung up my dresses, neatly placed my shoes back on the shelf, and let their relentless calls fill the silence. Eventually I sighed, picking up my phone to scroll through the messages. From Mom. Envelope with arrow. Ava, what's going on? The hotel won't let us check in. The reservation is missing. Call me immediately. Envelope with arrow. Ava, this isn't funny. Fix this. Now. A sharp laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Fix this. They really thought I'd swoop in and save the day after what they did? The phone buzzed again, this time a call from Madison. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a new notification popped up. Studio microphone voicemail from Madison. Ava, this is so petty, she snapped. We're stuck here because of you. You need to call the hotel and fix it. Now. I rolled my eyes and deleted the voicemail without bothering to listen to the rest. For years I had been their fixer. The one who smoothed over every mistake. The one who picked up their slack. Not anymore. Eventually, I decided to answer a call, if only to stop the barrage of notifications. The second I picked up, Mom's voice hit me like a tidal wave of fury. Ava, what did you do? No greeting. No pleasantries. Just accusation. The hotel says the reservation was canceled. The tours are gone. Nothing is booked anymore. I let her rant for a moment, then calmly replied, yeah, I canceled them. A long stunned silence followed. Then she hissed, why would you do that? I let out a low, humorless laugh. Oh, I don't know, Mom. Maybe because you decided to take Madison on my trip. You're lucky I even drove you to the airport. Her voice sharpened. We thought you'd understand. Something inside me snapped. Understand what exactly? I shot back. That years of saving and planning meant nothing? That Madison needing a break was somehow more important than the effort I put into this? That my hard work was disposable? Guess what, Mom? I continued, my voice steady. I don't understand. And I don't care to. Before she could respond, I hung up. Then I turned off my phone and tossed it onto the couch. For the first time in years, the silence felt good. They had made their choice. Now they could deal with it. The fallout, the silence lasted exactly one day. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing again. I ignored it. I spent the day cleaning the house, catching up on work. Anything to enjoy the quiet. But by evening, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up my phone, bracing myself for the incoming storm. The messages were exactly what I expected. From Mom. Envelope with arrow. Ava, you've gone too far. Your sister is in tears, and your father is furious. We can't get into any of the hotels you booked. From Madison. Envelope with arrow. You're acting like a child. I don't get why you're making this such a big deal. Just fix it already. And finally, from Dad. Envelope with arrow. We need to talk. This isn't right. I stared at the screen, shaking my head. Unbelievable. For years I had been the one to fix things. To make sure they were comfortable. To make sure they were happy. Now that I had taken a step back, they didn't know how to handle it. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, letting my anger simmer. How dare they expect me to clean up their mess? How dare they act like I'm the one in the wrong? Minutes later, the phone rang again. This time I answered. Ava. Mom's voice barked before I could say a word. This isn't funny anymore. We're stranded. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? I took a slow sip of my tea. Embarrassing. I echoed. You think this is embarrassing? Try saving for years, planning every detail. And then being told you're not even part of the trip you paid for. Her voice hardened. Stop being dramatic. Madison needed this more than you. I exhaled long and slow. And now, I said, my voice calm and even, she can figure it out. You made your decision, Mom. You wanted to take Madison instead of me? Fine. But don't expect me to fund her vacation. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped to a hiss. We're family, Ava. We don't do this to each other. A bitter laugh escaped me. Funny, I said. I was just thinking the same thing. In the background, I heard Madison whining. Mom, just hang up on her. She's being impossible. That was it. The final straw. I smirked, voice turning ice cold. Enjoy your trip. A beat of silence. Oh, wait. I tilted my head, letting my words cut deep. You can't because it's not your trip. It was mine. And now? It's nobody's. Then before she could respond, I hung up and turned off my phone. For the rest of the night, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger that they had put me in this position, but also relief. For the first time in my life, I wasn't letting them walk all over me. They could call me dramatic all they wanted. I was done playing the role of their punching bag. The aftermath the next few days were blissfully quiet. With my phone turned off, I finally had space to think clearly. I spent my mornings sipping coffee on the back porch, enjoying the peace. My afternoons were filled with projects I'd been putting off. For once, everything felt lighter. But by the third day, curiosity won. I turned my phone back on, only to find over a dozen voicemails waiting for me. I smiled. Let the games begin. The first few voicemails were from my mom, growing increasingly hysterical with each message. Envelope with arrow, Ava. You need to call me back right now. This has gone too far. Envelope with arrow, I can't believe you're doing this. You've humiliated us. We're your parents. How could you treat us this way? Then came Madison's messages, filled with the same entitled tone she'd used her whole life. Envelope with arrow, this is so petty even for you. Envelope with arrow, you're ruining everything. Just fix it, Ava. And finally, my dad's voice, quieter but no less pointed. Envelope with arrow, Ava. I don't understand what's happened to you. Call us back so we can sort this out. I hesitated before listening to the final voicemail. It was from my mom, but her tone had changed, quieter now, laced with exhaustion. Studio microphone, Ava. We're back at the airport now. The trip is ruined, and I hope you're happy with yourself. Your sister is devastated, and your father and I are. Well, disappointed doesn't even begin to cover it. Call us when you're ready to talk. I stared at the phone for a moment, then deleted the voicemails without replying. I wasn't ready to talk, and honestly, I didn't know if I ever would be, because this wasn't just about one trip. This was about years of being dismissed, of being an afterthought, of holidays where Madison's whims dictated the plans, of family gatherings where my accomplishments were overlooked. The trip was just the breaking point. The cracks had been forming for years. Breaking the cycle that evening, Rachel showed up unannounced, 2 cups of coffee in hand and an unmistakable look of curiosity. She set the coffee on the table, crossing her arms. I heard about what happened. I sighed. Let me guess. My mom called you. Rachel smirked. Of course she did. She's good at recruiting allies when she wants to guilt you into something. I took a sip of my coffee. And? What did you tell her? Rachel shrugged, that sly smile still on her face. I told her you were probably busy and would get back to her when you were ready. A surprised laugh bubbled out of me. You're the best. Rachel's smile faded into something more serious. No, you're the best, she said. Because you finally stood up for yourself. I know how hard that is, Ava. Don't let them drag you back down. Her words lingered long after she left. She was right. I had spent too long bending over backward for people who never cared about my efforts. It was time to break that cycle. Once and for all. The call I didn't ignore. By the time the weekend rolled around, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. But alongside it, freedom. Freedom from their expectations. Freedom from being the family's fixer. Freedom to finally live on my own terms. But as expected, the silence didn't last. On Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time I answered. Ava. Dad's voice was heavy with weariness. Your mom wanted me to call. She thinks you'll listen to me. I leaned back in my chair. Go on. He sighed. Look, this has all gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Madison's furious, and, well, it's just a mess. But you're better than this. My stomach tightened. Better than what, Dad? My voice sharpened. Better than standing up for myself? Better than refusing to let you all walk all over me again. That's not what I meant, he said quickly. It's just you've always been the reasonable one. The one who keeps everything together. This isn't like you. I let out a short, bitter laugh. You're right. It's not like me. Because for the first time, I'm not bending over backward to clean up your mess. He went silent. For a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see my side of things. Then he said, "You're punishing the whole family over one decision. Is that really fair?" Fair? I stiffened. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to be part of the trip I planned? Was it fair when you replaced me with Madison like I didn't matter? That's not what we were trying to do, he strained. We just thought Madison needed it more. Of course they always though more. More attention. More support. More of everything. And I was always expect sacrifice for her. Not anymore, I said, cold and certain. A long silence Strafina. I don't know what you want me to say. Aiksha, I don't need you to say anything, Dad. I just need you to understand that I'm done being the afterthought. From now on, I come first. Ava. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call and set my hands. Were trembling with anger, with a danger, with adrenaline, with relief. For the rest of the day, I let myself feel everything. The hurt. The betrayal. But also the power of finally choosing myself. And I knew deep in my bones I was never going back. I wasn't the family's fixer anymore. And I wasn't going to be. They could clean up their own messes now. So when my parents and Madison finally returned, I was waiting for them. I sat on their porch swing sipping coffee, feeling strangely calm as their taxi pulled into the driveway. The second they stepped out, dragging their suitcases behind them, I could see it. The exhaustion, the irritation, the disappointment. It was almost satisfying. Madison was the first to snap. Well, I hope you're happy, Ava. I raised an eyebrow, staying comfortably seated. Happy about what? Mom huffed, waving her hand dismissively. Our trip was a disaster. We spent the entire week in dingy hotels, eating terrible food because we couldn't afford anything decent. Madison crossed her arms, her frustration rolling off her in waves. Oh, and don't get me started on the tours, she added bitterly. Oh wait, there weren't any. Do you know how embarrassing it was to show up and be told there was no reservation? I took another slow sip of coffee, letting their complaints wash over me. Then I simply said, sounds rough. I let the words hang in the air before adding, but you wanted to take Madison, remember? I'm sure you all had some great bonding time. Mom's eyes narrowed. That's not the point, Ava. Her voice rose in irritation. You knew we couldn't afford all the things you'd planned. You set us up to fail. I set my mug down on the small table beside me and stood up. No, Mom. I didn't set you up for anything. My voice was steady, firm. I planned a trip for the three of us, something special I'd been saving for years. You're the ones who decided to cut me out at the last second. Dad finally spoke up, his voice quieter but no less accusatory. You didn't have to cancel everything, Ava. That was extreme. I tilted my head, incredulous. Was it? Why should I have paid for a trip I wasn't even invited to? If Madison needed it so badly, you should have planned it yourselves. You're lucky, I added, eyeing my sister, that I didn't cancel the return flight too. Madison let out a dramatic sigh, rolling her eyes. You're so dramatic, Ava. It's just money. And that's when my patience snapped. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to something sharp and cutting. And you're so entitled, Madison. Do you have any idea how much work and sacrifice went into planning that trip? Or do you just assume things magically appear for you because someone else takes care of it? For the first time, they all went silent. I let the quiet stretch out, letting them feel it. For years, I continued, voice unwavering. I've been the responsible one, the one who fixes things, the one who plans things, the one who makes sure everything runs smoothly. And you've spent just as long taking it all for granted. Mom opened her mouth, flustered, but I held up a hand. No, Mom. What's not fair is how you treated me. You chose Madison over me like always. So I chose to stop being your doormat. You didn't want me on the trip? Fine. But you don't get to enjoy the benefits of my hard work without me. I grabbed my bag from the porch swing and turned to leave. I'm glad you're back safely. But don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I'm done. I walked toward my car as their voices rose behind me. A mix of anger, guilt, and disbelief. But I didn't look back. The drive home for years, every visit to my parents' house had left me emotionally drained. But this time I felt lighter. I'd finally said everything I had been holding in, and for once I wasn't worried about their reaction. A new beginning that night. I sat on my couch, a cup of tea in hand, replaying the confrontation in my head. They had been so sure I would fold, that I would cave like always. But watching their stunned faces as I walked away, it was proof of just how much I had changed. They could be angry, they could be hurt, they could be embarrassed. It didn't matter. I wasn't living my life to meet their expectations anymore. The call from Rachel the next day. Rachel called. She didn't bother with pleasantries. How'd it go? I laughed, leaning against my kitchen counter. Exactly like you'd imagine. They're furious. Madison's pouting. And Mom? She's probably figuring out how to guilt me back into line. Rachel snorted. Let her try. You've got a backbone now, and I'm here to make sure it stays in place. I grinned, warmth spreading in my chest. Thanks, Rachel. Really. You've been my rock through all of this. Her voice softened. Anytime. Then she asked, so what's next for you? I hesitated. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because for years my life had revolved around pleasing my family. Now that I had let that burden go, the possibilities felt endless. I don't know yet, I admitted, a small smile forming. But for the first time, I get to decide. Rachel chuckled. Sounds like the start of something amazing. Reclaiming my life. Over the next few weeks, I started making small changes, things that felt big in their own way. I redecorated my living room, replacing the hand-me-down furniture from my parents with pieces that felt uniquely mine. I spent weekends exploring new cafes, trying new things, making time for myself. And I started journaling, writing down my thoughts without filtering them through the lens of what anyone else might think. Each small step felt like I was reclaiming a part of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. Then one evening I sat down with my laptop and opened the spreadsheet I'd used to plan the trip. I stared at it for a moment, my cursor blinking in the empty search bar. Then I typed, solo travel destinations. And for the first time in my life, the world felt wide open. The canceled reservations stared back at me, but instead of regret, I felt something else. A surge of determination. That money had been meant for a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I wasn't going to let it go to waste. I closed the spreadsheet and opened a new browser tab. Solo travel destinations. A few weeks after my parents returned, I booked a solo trip to Italy. This wasn't about proving a point anymore. It wasn't about them at all. This was about me. About celebrating my independence and finally putting myself first. The moment I stepped off the plane in Rome, I felt it. A mixture of excitement and nervousness, the thrill of the unknown. I'd never traveled alone before. But as I walked out of the airport and into the bustling city, something inside me whispered, you made the right choice. Freedom in every step. For the first time in my life, I was traveling with no one else to consider. No compromises, no schedules dictated by others. Just me. I wandered through cobblestone streets, let myself get lost in the charm of hidden alleyways, and marveled at ancient ruins that had stood the test of time. Just like I had. I indulged in gelato at a tiny cafe, sipped cappuccinos while people watching in quaint piazzas, and took my time admiring the world around me. No rushing. No worrying about anyone else's needs. Just pure uninterrupted joy. One afternoon I sat on the Spanish steps, a cup of pistachio gelato in hand, and pulled out the journal I'd packed. For years my goals had always been wrapped up in making someone else happy. But now the list was different. Learn a new language. Start a small business. Travel to 5 more countries. Each goal I wrote was a reflection of the life I wanted, not the one I had been expected to live. I was no longer just existing for others. I was choosing myself. On my last night in Florence, I had dinner at a small family-run restaurant overlooking the Arno River. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, the sunset reflecting off the water like a dream. As I sipped my wine, feeling the warmth spread through me, I let out a slow breath. This trip hadn't just been a vacation. It was a turning point. For years, I had bent over backward trying to earn my family's approval. But here, thousands of miles away, the truth became crystal clear. I didn't need it. I was enough just as I was. When I landed back home, my phone lit up with a familiar name. Mom. This time, her texts weren't demands or accusations. Instead, they were carefully worded, almost hesitant. Hope you had a nice trip. Maybe we can all talk soon? I stared at the messages for a long moment, then set my phone down. I wasn't ready to reply. And for the first time ever, that was okay. This time it would be on my terms. A week later, my phone rang again. I answered this time. Hi, Ava. My mom began, her tone softer than usual. How was your trip? It was amazing, I said, keeping my voice neutral. A pause. That's good to hear, she said carefully. Then after a deep breath. We've been thinking a lot about what happened. Maybe we handled things poorly. I blinked. The admission surprised me, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. Poorly. I repeated. Mom, you replaced me on a trip I planned and paid for without even asking. Asterisk poorly is an understatement. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, she sighed. I know, she said, quieter this time. Your dad and we didn't realize how much it would hurt you. I let that sit between us. And Madison? I asked, voice even. Does she feel bad too? Or is she still blaming me for ruining her vacation? Another pause. She's upset, my mom admitted. But I think she knows she could have handled things better. I sighed, leaning against the kitchen counter. Mom, this wasn't just about the trip. It's about years of putting her first and expecting me to pick up the slack. I'm not doing it anymore. A long silence. Then, I understand, she said. Finally, we're going to try to do better. We don't want to lose you. Her words tugged at something deep inside me. But I had learned enough to know. Guilt wouldn't dictate my choices anymore. I'm glad to hear that, I said, my voice firm. But it's going to take more than words to fix this. I need to see real effort, not just apologies. You will, she promised. We'll give you the space you need. But I hope you'll let us back in someday. When I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions, relief that they were finally acknowledging their behavior, and skepticism about whether they'd actually change. But then, as I sat down with my journal that evening, I realized something important. Whether or not they changed wasn't my responsibility. In the months that followed, I kept my boundaries firm. I responded to calls and texts when I felt like it. But I no longer went out of my way to fix things. I no longer smoothed over conflicts. Instead, I focused on building my own life. I signed up for a photography class, something I had always dreamed of doing but never made time for. I joined a hiking group. I started planning my next solo trip. Each step felt like I was reclaiming another piece of myself, a self that had been buried under years of obligation. One evening I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the sky. And I realized, I wasn't the girl who bent over backward for people who didn't appreciate me anymore. I wasn't waiting for my family's approval. I wasn't afraid to stand up for myself. I was someone who valued herself. I was someone who set boundaries. I was someone who chose happiness on her own terms. I was free.